What does a contraction feel like? How do I know if I'm in labor? And what does a day of labor look like? Wait, is this normal? Hey, I'm Heidi. My best friends call me Hides. I'm a certified birth doula, host of this podcast, and author of Birth Story, an interactive pregnancy guidebook. I have supported hundreds of women through their labor and deliveries, and I believe every one of them and you deserves a microphone and a stage. So here we are. Listen each week to get answers to these tough questions. Birth Story, where we talk about pregnancy, labor, deliveries, where we tell our stories and share our feelings. And of course, chat about our favorite baby products and motherhood. And because I'm passionate about birth outcomes, you will hear from some of the top experts in labor and delivery. Whether you are pregnant, trying desperately to get pregnant, or you just love a good birth story, I hope you will stick around and be part of this Birth Story family. Thank you for listening to the Birth Story podcast. If you are tuning in for the first time, I want to encourage you to start at the beginning. I want you to go on a journey with me and allow me to be your virtual doula and teach you all the things along the way. So I'm just going to give you a couple highlights of some of the earlier podcast episodes if you are just now tuning in. So very first episode, episode 1, you can learn all about me, who I am, why I became a doula, why it is I do what I do, and also my very own birth story with my second child, Jagger. Then I've interviewed some really cool CEOs. So episode 3, Tori Jones is the CEO of eShell Triangle, and she was also featured on Rachel Hollis's The Rise podcast. Episode 7 was Rachel Coley, the CEO of Can Do Kiddo. She was just on Good Morning America. She's an incredible occupational therapist that teaches you how to play with your baby, and her birth stories are incredible. Episode 10 was one of my best friends, Amy, who had a VBAC in the car. We have done episodes on micro preemies, episode 18, 21 on international adoption out of Uganda, 24 and 25. Oh, those episodes like Get a Box of Tissues. They're on surrogacy and cancer. We've addressed hypnobirthing, fertility, really easy, joyful, medicated births, really hard, long labors, medicated, unmedicated, everything in between. So I hope you'll start at the beginning. Let the Birth Story podcast take you on a journey all the way through, and enjoy this episode. And then remember to rewind all the way back to episode 1. Thanks for tuning in. Are you guys ready for another daddy boot camp? These are 3 of my favorite dads from 2019, Justin, Chris, and Kaz. And this is going to be split into 2 parts. You have to hang in for both episodes too. We recorded for over 3 hours. I had all 3 dads crying, opening their hearts out because they want to teach you and your spouse or your partner right now about what it's like transitioning into parenthood and fatherhood through pregnancy, through labor, through delivery, and all of the ways in which their birth stories unfolded. Welcome to the Birth Story podcast, Daddy Boot Camp. I've got 3 of my new dads. I was supposed to be all of their doulas, but we'll get into why I wasn't really one of their doulas in a minute. And so first, let's introduce who you are, who your wife is, and then how old your baby is. Go ahead, Justin.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm super excited about this all day. My name's Justin Drumright. My wife, Kelly Corse, is her maiden name. I'm Kelly Drumright now. And our son was born on May 27th, and his name is Grayson Keith Drumright. I lost that battle. I really wanted Tristan. She makes fun of me because of the movie Legends of the Fall with Brad Pitt. I wanted to name him Tristan.
I like it.
Well, yeah.
Nice.
When she has a drink, she'll tell people this and then proceed to make fun of me for an hour in front of anybody that'll listen. But went with Grayson, and I lost my father unexpectedly 3 years ago. So that's where Keith came from.
Oh, okay. That's good family name. So the next one just needs to be Tristan.
Yes. Well, it needs to be a boy, too.
Yeah.
There's like two things going on there.
I only know how to make boys. So I'm like, yeah, it's obvious you're going to have another boy. Yep. Tell us, what do you do?
I work for a healthcare company. We basically build hospital labs from a chemistry, hematology, immunoassay. We put the automation tracks in and all the instruments that hook up, and then we do the software. That's why I was curious what you were telling me earlier about your job, into their LIS or EMR, so most people know it as your electronic medical record.
Okay, cool.
I do that all over the Southeast.
And one of the things we're going to get into is paternity leave. So what does your paternity leave look like at your company?
So mine was a whopping 2 weeks.
Okay.
So it worked out well. I actually went back after, 8 days. So they let me keep 2, and I'm still going to use them later this year. But Kelly had 3 months.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that I interview have 0 paternity leave. So I'm like, 2 weeks is really good.
Yeah.
So cool. All right, let's move on. I'm directly facing Chris, so I'm going to be staring at you the entire time.
Perfect.
Who are you?
So my name is Chris Ray, and my wife's name is Jessica. Jessica Marshall is her maiden name now, obviously Jessica Ray. And we had our son on August 28th. So he's 6 weeks old now, and his name is Ethan Marshall Ray. I work for a company called Ring Central. We do unified communications as a software. So we provide communication solutions to enterprise businesses. And I got 8 weeks for paternity leave. So it was, it was
Well,
awesome.
cheers that.
Yeah. So they, really good benefits, great company to work for.
So you're going to go back to work tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And
So we
then-
can take the 8 weeks and split it up however we want. So decided we're going through, we made a really big announcement actually last week that we put about $500 million investment into an existing company. So I felt like it's time to go back. I lead our customer success segment for our majors group from Denver East, and I have Canada as well. So the managers that are on my team manage all of our customers. So with that type of growth, I don't want to miss out. I'm trying to position myself, to stay there and succeed. So I'm going to go back, and then I'll take a week when we're going to go to the mountains after little guy gets his immunizations, and then probably I'll take a bunch of time off around the holidays when we slow down. So
cool. I like that you have the ability and that flexibility to kind of use some of it, you guys, and then use some of it later.
yeah,
it's pretty neat.
Awesome program.
So 4-month-old, 6-week-old, and then we've got Cass. So tell us about you.
Yeah, so my name is Cass Sneathen. My wife is Christina Mango, is her maiden name is Mango, and obviously her name is Christina Sneathen now. My daughter, Kennedy Louise Sneathen, is 3 months old. She was born on July 4th, 2019. So, a little firecracker baby. Yeah. So
Mine was Memorial Day, so we've got
holiday time.
babies.
Yeah, exactly. So my paternity policy was pretty much kind of you just do your thing, be with your wife, be with your kid. We're not really going to track it. What I do is a little bit unique, kind of a niche to the market, I guess you could say. I work with charter schools across the state of North Carolina. So I traveled anywhere from Cherokee, North Carolina to Greenville, North Carolina, working specifically with charter schools, go on campus, teach them how to utilize a program called Power School. So it was during our busy time of the year that Kennedy was born. And so I had all my trainings booked July and August. August is like slam packed because when the schools aren't in session, they want to do their trainings. So yeah, that was an interesting position because I was there on the road 2 weeks after Kennedy was born, back on the road while, Christina was adjusting to life with the little one at home. Yeah, but my wife actually had 6 weeks of maternity leave. She actually got hired on a new job that she could not turn down while she was 6.5 months pregnant.
Wow.
Someone kind of approached her and said, you should apply for this job, and she did, and they wanted her, and long story short, she worked for about 6 weeks and then got pregnant, and then not got pregnant, but then had Kennedy, and then it was a real quick turnaround there.
That hiring person, I really like when people invest in women that are pregnant because they know that they're going to be performers when they get back. So,
That's super awesome.
This brings up my very first question to you guys is talking about getting pregnant, because it sounds like if you could have planned like the perfect time to have gotten pregnant and then delivered, it wouldn't have been delivering during your busy season.
Yeah,
So
it really wouldn't have been.
tell me about that journey. Like, did you guys have a planned pregnancy, an unplanned pregnancy? And I'm asking Cass first, since he was just mentioning about the birth of his daughter Kennedy in his busy season. So how'd that go?
So my wife and I have been together at that time about 6 years when we got married on New Year's Eve. And yeah, another holiday there. Yeah, so I keep the dates.
Married.
I keep the really. Are you
Yeah,
serious?
I got married New Year's Eve too.
You keep the dates holiday specific,
exactly.
so you know,
so you don't forget.
Absolutely, yeah, and everybody's celebrating with you. So
I like the party energy in this room. There we go.
Exactly. So right after, we both knew that we wanted to start trying, and so we did, and it took a little while, and there were some hiccups along the way, and we were just open to whenever it was going to happen. It was going to happen. My wife did go to some doctors and get put on some different things to help, hormonally and all of that good thing. But at the end of the day, it was successful. It worked out. But yeah, it was just we weren't really planning anything like, hey, let's get pregnant this month. It was more of just whenever God wants it to happen, it'll happen. And, we just tried our hardest. I really did.
Really tough job. I'm like, really tough
really
job
was,
right there.
Really feel bad for you.
So you conceived naturally. Christina conceived naturally.
Right. Yes.
Naturally.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to move over to Chris.
Yeah.
I know your story is a little bit different. So do you mind sharing with us, like how you met Jess and how you decided to become parents and kind of what your journey looked like?
Yeah, I don't know if I should share the story how I met her. No, we actually got introduced by mutual friends who connected us on Facebook, and I've never been a friend with someone that I haven't met. So I can't remember if I sent her the request or she sent me, but I accepted. And I'm older, right? I'm 42, so I'm a little bit older. She's younger than I am.
Cradle robber.
Yeah, right. And I was at the Whitewater Center because I moved here from the Washington, D.C. area about almost 5 years ago. And I was at the Whitewater Center, and my car was at the Ice House, which used to be in South End. And my friends dropped me off in my car, and I lived there, and I couldn't drive. I was like, I'm going to walk home. And the friend
because you had been drinking too much
all day.
Oh, okay.
All day.
And the friend that introduced us sent me a text and said, hey, we're watching the World Cup at Ice House. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm in the parking lot. So I walked in, and I like Tony Soprano. I had my shirt unbuttoned down, so like I didn't even realize it. Like it was bad. And Jess was there, and I think we started talking because she had been to Ireland. I'd been to Ireland, something weird. And she gave me a ride home. And that's how we met.
And were you like, you friend requested me on Facebook?
Yeah, we're like, I think like we met, her dad had unexpectedly passed away around that time. And I think that's her friend thought that we would have, that we had a lot in common. And so that's how we got, it was kind of a setup. It was. So yeah, we walked in and I was like, hey, Facebook, to my best recollection. And then we had great conversation. And then we were like, after that moment, we were always together, but we weren't dating really. I was coming off a divorce, moved to Charlotte, didn't know anyone. It was a rough time. So I wasn't in the good like headspace.
Failure to commit.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, but I was upfront. Like I was honest. Like I'm not, like I was trying to figure myself out.
Okay.
And I took my time trying to do what was right. And then we just had our 3rd anniversary in August of this year. So right after getting married in 2016, we started trying. And I think we might actually have gotten like conceived on our honeymoon. So we're very fortunate that we were able to, but we lost that baby. And then we had 2 more losses after that. So our process was different. It was really a struggle, not kind of understanding in our faith is very important to us. And kind of, did God not want us to be parents? Did we need to adopt? We weren't quite sure what to do. So we went through the whole gamut of everything, and no one could figure out what was wrong. So it's undiagnosed infertility, even though you can get pregnant, which is kind of weird, right? So there's a lot of like blaming of, I think Jessica thought that it was her fault, and I thought that it was my fault. And we did everything like fractionalized DNA testing on me, and everything you could finally or think of doing, we went through. And that's.
And I'm assuming you were at a fertility specialist.
Yeah, we were at one in Charlotte, and I was a big fan of the doctor, and I'll always credit Jess for doing this. She she thought that she needed to get a second opinion.
Okay.
And I was like, come on, she went to Duke, it's like she's a well-respected physician in the field, but wanted to support her. And the second doctor that we went to, she kind of had some thoughts of what it might be and wanted to do exploratory surgery. And basically she determined what the issue was, what the previous physician had ruled out as not being an issue, as not existing.
Wow.
So that was like a big moment for us. And it was, I'll never forget, it was probably a week before. And she was really, she'd been poked and prodded and tested 3 years, like taking off time from work and getting monitored and doing all this crazy stuff. And we hadn't digged too much into IVF yet, but we weren't sure if that was an option for us. Like we were kind of trying to like navigate what we were comfortable with.
Because after the uterine surgery, right, then she was able, like they were saying, like, because we did the surgery, now we believe she'll be able to carry to term.
Right. So it wasn't that positive. Like it wasn't as definite as that statement. What it was. Okay. So we got to the point where she was like, I don't know if I want to have the surgery. I don't know if I want them to go and see if they can determine what the issue is physically, if there is something in there.
Okay.
And I said, I totally get it. Whatever you want to do is what we're going to do, right? It's not my body. So
yeah,
support her 100%. And she woke up and she was like, God told me last night, I'm going to do the surgery. Because when we went to bed that night, we were not having the surgery. And we started looking at adoption and trying to think what other opportunities, we might be able to explore. And she woke up that morning and she's like, I don't know if it was a dream or God speaking to her or whatever, but she was determined that we're going to go in and do it. So she was in surgery for 15 minutes and our doctor came out and she had pictures and everything. And she's like, there is a uterine septum, which our previous physician said there was not. And she showed me pictures and she's like, I resected it and this and all this stuff. And she was like, she was really animated and excited. And I'm like, so this has got to be good news. So surgery was supposed to take an hour. It was like 20 minutes and they were done. So Jess, since she's in the recovery, trying to be like, this is awesome news. Like, what does this look like? We have to wait 2 weeks before we go back to make sure everything's healed up. And then the doctor was like, okay, so you can start trying. This was October. You can start trying in December. And then come back in like March and we'll talk about IVF or next steps or whatever you guys want to do next. So it's like you're super high, like, oh, geez, we found out what might be the issue, but there's no finality to it. Like, this is absolutely what's going to fix, or not that anything was broken, but this might give you the opportunity to go beyond. I think the farthest we got was 12 weeks. So like super excited and then kind of like, oh, geez, what are we going to like, how long can we keep going through this cycle? Because the stress it puts on the relationship is, I'm sure everyone, it can be devastating if you aren't careful the way that you treat it. And December comes around. So we start trying again, and Christmas morning, I believe. We were doing Christmas with her mom and her sister were coming over for breakfast. And she wakes up that morning and she's like, I'm pregnant. And I'm like, okay, it's Christmas Eve. How do you know you're pregnant? She's like, I don't know. I just think I'm pregnant. And I'm like, there's no way that our miracle would be this amazing, right? Like I'm a Christmas nut. Like I'm about to put my tree up tomorrow.
This just reinforces one more holiday.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's just
which is super weird. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm like, yeah, that would be amazing. In my heart, we'd been defeated so many times. It's like, we're just not. So she takes pregnancy test and it's one of those tweeners. Like it's not pink. It's not, but is that a line? I don't know. I think it's a line. Do you think it's a line? So doctor's open. She goes to the doctor and
they take her blood.
Yeah. I think they called and they said, come in now. So she's like running and she's like, can you get breakfast ready? I made like a casserole. It was like our Christmas celebration experience. Yes, and everything. And I'm like, okay, like, how does this work? So she runs to the doctor, gets her blood drawn, comes back home. Her mom and her sister arrive. We do breakfast. And in the middle of it, she gets a phone call. And she answers the phone. She's like, hello, which is kind of not her style. So immediately her sister's like, what the hell is like, what's going on? I was like, oh, I think it's work. I'm pretty sure that's what I said, which is ridiculous because for a bank, no one in a bank works the month of December. So she goes upstairs. She's on the phone for like 5 minutes. She comes down. She's like, and I'm like, oh my God, we're pregnant. And she's like, go upstairs. And she's like, yes. So that's how we found out we were pregnant. And that was amazing, right? Like the greatest gift you could ever imagine. But then it's right back to where we've been the 3 previous times.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is awesome, but when do we lose? Like, when do we lose the baby?
Were you guys both thinking that and communicating about it, or were you guys just processing for 12 weeks individually?
So I would say we processed it individually, but my processing was done internally. Like I feel I didn't have anyone to commiserate with or talk with. And I felt like a real strong sense that I had to be like the pillar of support and be there and listen to everything she had, because it's different for her, right? So I battled with, and I have a couple buddies who I think could empathize and sympathize, and I would talk to them, but it wasn't it's probably not what I needed. And I don't think I did my mental health, right, any favors by trying to be the hero as it was for her. But anytime she, there was like her stomach was upset or there was something wrong. But I mean, I know she did because she would verbalize it, and I would be strong and try to be positive and be like, no, this is different. This is the way it's going to be. But a lot of the times it's not the way I felt, right? And that was hard because then you don't want to be disingenuous and feel like you're being dishonest, but I'm also trying to do what I think is best for our family, for the unborn child and for her.
So do you guys feel like you had a moment in time where you celebrated the pregnancy? Like how some people pee on a stick in there, or get their blood drawn in their experience, maybe like Christina and Cass, like maybe theirs was like, yeah, high five, like, did you have that moment at some point in your pregnancy?
We had a few like snippets of it, but we never got that. We talk about it all the time, how we never had that joy that a lot of people do, which is weird because then you start to feel like you feel that you missed out. Right. And then you feel selfish because how fortunate are we to have a baby when so many people don't ever get that opportunity. But then you also start to take friends and family and be like, that sucks that they got to do that. And then you're like, geez, wow, how vain am I for being like bitter at people I love because they got to have this experience that was different than ours. And we really had to talk through that and get to a mature place to be like, it's okay to feel that way, right? We're human beings. We can have those feelings. That doesn't make us bad. But how do we use that? How do we how do we turn it into something positive? How do we embrace our story and embrace the journey that we've been on? And I think after like we did the sex reveal, that was a big thing for, I think, us to do with like family and friends. Because we had told my parents and her mom and her sister on the second loss. And we got an ultrasound because she felt like something wasn't quite right. And in the elevator, she started to miscarriage after the ultrasound and everything was great. So that type of like hit was like brutal. So every time we went to, to get an ultrasound or go see the doctor, it was just like, it was heavy for a while. And then, I think we celebrate the difficult and the struggle that we've been through. And I think through this, we both made a commitment, especially her, to be open and honest and really be advocates for people, especially women can be absolutely brutal to each other. What I found in not talking about miscarriage and not talking about infertility or unintentionally being judgmental about those things and thinking that it's like, something wrong with someone's body or it can be just, it's a dark and like lonely place. Not something I would ever have really thought about until like going through it. And then men don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. Women don't talk about it. Society doesn't talk about it. It's like this thing. And then if I hear of someone that has a loss and I hear somebody else say, so many people said to my wife, oh, I had a friend, she had 9 miscarriages and now she has 8 kids. I mean, it's unbelievable. Everybody has a miscarriage. That's great. That doesn't
not
lessen.
Everybody. No, I was going to say,
Right.
I'll jump in. Everyone does not have a miscarriage, right? 75% of people don't have a miscarriage.
And it's crazy that people think, that's how they think that they can comfort someone, right?
Right.
It's the farthest thing from comforting anyone if you're going to try to make someone feel bad, when someone has cancer, you just say, that sucks. I'm sorry. Don't try to mitigate, right? Or diminish their loss by saying it happens all the time.
Our culture is really terrible at dealing with grief and talking about grief,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
one of the things that you said that really struck me is like, then you find out you're pregnant again, right? And
huge highs.
huge high, but you're still working through grief. So like we can have joy and grief going on simultaneously. And those things continue to be at battle with each other, often until the actual birth, of the baby occurs. So I have a question I'm going to come back to on that. But I want to hear Justin's story of conception and kind of like when you decided you wanted to have a baby and what that journey looked like for you and Kelly.
Oh, boy. So when Kelly gets something in her head, it's going to happen. Like Kelly just gets things done. That's just who she is as a person. So we got married New Year's Eve 3 years ago, and I wanted to start having kids pretty quickly. Kelly's 2 years older than me. And, we weren't up against the biological clock, but we'd been together 6 years. Like, let's just do this thing, and we didn't fight about it really, but we had some direct discussions for, 9 months to a year. And then I feel like just sometimes with Kelly, it clicks. And I feel like she woke up one day, I was like, we're having a kid. Cool.
So you wanted to have a baby first. Like,
yeah. I was
it's interesting. You're younger,
right?
And you wanted to have a baby first. You're just like all those stereotypes, knocking them down right there.
He's the one man who's actually more mature than
an older woman. Yeah,
he's the unicorn.
Well, I tell you, it really is personal for me because, I come from a broken home, lost my father really early, just a broken home, and me and my brother are best friends, like inseparable. We talk probably once, twice a day on the phone, have been like that since we were probably 16 and 14. And I always hoped to give, I wanted to have kids to give them the opportunity to have that relationship that me and my brother did. So that's why I pushed it because I knew, going to Chris's story, that there's probably going to be some problems. Let's hope there's not, but we could run into some stuff. So, I pushed it, and that's not really fair. I encouraged it. And we got pregnant. We're pretty sure Christmas Eve, nice. The first time at about 4:30 in the morning.
Wow, that's pretty accurate.
I love it.
Wow. So like I said, when Kelly gets something in her head. So for the past couple of years when my dad was still alive, we would get up, we would drive the 6 hours to Pittsburgh. I would spend 2 or 3 days in Pittsburgh with her mom. Her dad lives in Florida. I'd spend 2 or 3 days with her mom, drive at the crack of dawn on Christmas Eve to Richmond. My mom lives in Curry Beach, North Carolina. They would drive to Richmond because my stepdad's kid's mother lived in Richmond too. So for years, we've done Christmas literally in a hotel suite. Like they cook in a Fairfield Inn Suites or whatever, that has a kitchen. Yeah. So, like we cook and we're all play poker. So we play 2 or 3 games of poker, the wines hit heavy. And then we wake up the next day and go to dad's. And then I drive to the farm and then stay for a few days with my brother and finally get to relax, because I've been driving him down the East Coast. Right. And then I come back to Charlotte. But I tell you that story because she was ovulating and we were going to have sex that day before I left for 3 days, period. It just wasn't an option. So
I love this. So when she decided that she was going to have a baby, I'm assuming she started doing ovulation testing because she was serious about it.
Heidi, you have no idea.
She take her temperature too?
A basic thermometer.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, she is such a planner and so organized, and everything is such a scheduled routine. I mean, it's amazing. I think she knew within about 20 minutes when she started ovulating. I mean, that's just Kelly.
Yeah.
So we got pregnant the first time, found out, a couple weeks later when we're back in Charlotte and everything. And unfortunately, we lost that one at 9 weeks. So, I was sitting here listening to Chris, and it's nothing that he went through, but some of the emotions as he was talking about really hit home for me. It's, you want to be strong and you want to tell her it's okay and be there for her, but you're literally going crazy inside. I had an episode in Food Line where somebody just rubbed me the wrong way and I lost in the line at Food Line. And it was like the day after. 2 days after the gas company, I just got sod done, put, in the front yard. The gas company comes in, doesn't even knock on the door, and rips up my front yard and lays the gas line down. Oh. And I lost it on him in the front yard.
Brutal.
So, and I'm like, I don't want to use, I'm hurting bad inside. And I didn't have anybody to really talk to about it. my brother,
outlet for those emotions.
But, one of my groomsmen has 2 beautiful kids, never had a, miscarriage or anything. He breathes on her and they're pregnant. Another groomsman at my wedding, he's not married yet. Another groomsman at my wedding has a little boy. So like my tight-knit boys hadn't gone through it. And while I wanted to talk to them about it, I didn't want to burden them with it either. It was just kind of like just buck up and be strong, be there for Kelly, and, you'll get through it kind of thing.
How is she handling it?
Kelly is, to say Kelly's strong would not even be accurate. I mean, she's just a rock.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, she's just a rock. But what I got to learn about Kelly, and I don't mean that by any stretch of the imagination that I'm glad what happened, but what was interesting about what happened, my relationship with Kelly, is I felt like we got to know each other so much more, like through it. She's so individualistic, right? She's so independent that I got to see another side of her that was just made us closer. That like the vulnerability, all of that, and then my couple of encounters where I lost my, I mean, it just made us closer.
Yeah.
So
I had a dad that was on here once, and he said that like what helped him fall in love with his wife was when she was like so sick and hurting. And it was like the first time in their marriage he felt like she needed him.
Yeah, no, that's a very, that's a very good way to put it. It just, again, it's not a great thing when you stretch the imagination, but it's, this whole I didn't think I could love Kelly any more than I did when I married her. It wasn't even like the tip of the iceberg. Like literally wasn't even close to the way I feel about her now. And, you got to go through some, sometimes to, get the rose on the other end. I think that's a big part of it. Some higher beings in place, whatever it may be. It just kind of end up where we're at. So it was awful. Chris was talking about it. Is there something wrong with this? Is this going to happen? She's 38 or did we run out of time? All those things, we got women have children when they're 50 these days. What I mean? But all these things go through your mind and you just can't help it. And then to Chris's point, my mentality or mental state, mental health, whatever you want to call it, like I was raging. Like I was raging. And I mean, it's a terrible thing to say, but there's a few times like I was like, I just wish I could get my hands on somebody. Like that's how like I'm just raging inside.
Did you ever have like, when I feel that way, I like scream in the car.
No,
I like go alone and I like scream, but to have an outlet to get that energy out of your body. Like I understand that what you're saying, right?
So my gym is 0.8 miles down the hill.
There it is.
And I go there and put on headphones and act like a lunatic and let people judge.
And then you walk out of there a better man.
And I walk out, I'm like, you're not in prison, you didn't kill anybody, and you're going home to Kelly.
Setting off all the lunk alarms.
Gym counseling.
Yeah, so that's what I did. I'm a big outdoorsman. Spent a lot of time in the woods, so I spent a lot of time at the farm, hunting with friends. But the more and more I did that, the more and more I missed Kelly and wanted to be around her too. Because we're both hyper individual, hyper independent. But this whole thing, like, it's not that we didn't enjoy being around each other before. We love each other to death. But now it's like, dude, I want to hang out with my life.
Yeah.
Again, not that it wasn't like that before. It's just a more heightened awareness, I guess, if you will. This went on. So again, Kelly being Kelly, we're planning again. We know when ovulation's coming.
Let me ask you a quick question though. Did she miscarry naturally, or did she have to have a D&C performed?
So that's a good question. I was actually going to.
I didn't ask Chris that either. Yeah, but
I was going to tackle into what Chris said. So we elected to have the D&C.
Okay.
Very interesting conversation. I'm a very direct communicator, probably a little too candid. I've been told. I asked the doctor. I was like, the hell? Like, are you serious? And he told me his number was actually 30%. He said, Justin, 30% of pregnancies end in miscarriage. And it floored me. I thought I was the only one on earth that ever had a miscarriage. I just didn't know about it. I mean, Chris is exactly right. We don't talk about it as society. We don't educate. And he's 100% right that you can't say, oh, well, so-and-so had 25 miscarriages and now they have 18 kids. I mean, that's just like, you couldn't keep that to yourself. I mean, like, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
But for some reason, because he was all right, fine. And he was very direct. He used some profanity back at me. And we had this really direct conversation. And I think it was 3 days since it happened. For the first time in 3 days, I didn't feel alone. And it was with a complete stranger.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just hearing that you have no idea how common this is. This is probably a good thing. His words, this is probably a good thing. She's been on birth control for 20 years and she got pregnant within 2 months of going off birth control. This is probably a good thing, Justin.
This was the doctor.
Yeah, this was the doctor saying that. The point he was making was, this is her body getting ready.
Right.
And I was just like, wow, dude, that's huge. And I walked out, not smiling, but not wanting to kill people in Food Line anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like bricks just floated away.
It was unbelievable. And
praise to that doctor.
For
doing his job.
He was amazing. I'll never forget him. Like, I mean, if you walk in this room right now, I'd know who he was and hug him. And then by this time, Kelly's, in post-op, and like being with her in the bathroom and help cleaning her up and going through that with her and carrying her down to the car, getting her inside. I mean, again, not that it's a good thing, but this whole process, is it bad for me to even say that I'm kind of secretly thankful for? I don't know if that's the right way to say it. It's just,
I don't think so.
No, I mean, the way that other people will describe it too is like, for those of us that have had miscarriages and been through it, is that like little Grayson wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, I talk a lot about God and my faith on this podcast, but like, I absolutely believe that. I believe in God, and I believe that all of these things happen
for a reason.
I like to hear a little bit of that underlying story of healing and courage and connection and all of the beautiful things in different ways. Like I have, different clients that conceived in all different ways after loss and grief. And like, I feel what you're saying in that, I kind of connect and feel the same way that you feel about that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It on the same token, though, I do feel a little bad about it too, because if you make the statement, you're not happy, but it made you closer, so you're somewhat appreciative of such an awful situation. I still feel that it's kind of bad to say because of Kelly, because from her standpoint, like, how dare you say something like that? We could have just become, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I still am.
There are other ways. Is what you're saying.
Yeah,
right?
I'm still careful how I articulate that, but it's an underlying thing that I think was a good thing for us.
And I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier, like, in many ways, grief, losing a child, when you're a mom, a dad, no matter what, losing a child, no matter what gestation, it's probably a grief that you're going to feel your entire life.
Right.
And
you said, it sounds like Kelly's pretty deep, in her faith. You guys are as well. I travel a lot for work. I've got a team of 8 scattered around all 11 states in the Southeast, so I'm on the road a lot. I'm actually getting ready to be an ambassador member with Marriott. That's how awful my life is, but that's a whole other story.
I worked for Marriott for 16 years.
Really? Yeah. I hit ambassador next week. Nice. I'm 2 nights away.
There you go.
They had to land like, oh, congratulations. I'm like, no, do you realize how terrible my life is if I hit this? Like, this is not a cool thing to do.
Is it good that I love my life, that I don't know what an ambassador is?
You get free cookies on Wednesday.
So I was there when it happened. Like, I was home. And it was on a random, I think, Tuesday. When I leave Tuesday and I'm come back Thursday. So not to fast forward, but when the miscarriage happened, I was home. When we got pregnant, I was home. I mean, obviously I was home. When we found out, I was home. All these milestones throughout, like, I was home. And I've always looked back kind of retrospectively and like, wow, that's
got to be part of the plan, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So
I would say that was absolutely designed by God.
So I think that's really, really cool. So I'm sorry, I'm babbling. To answer your question, we tried naturally for a while. Obviously, with the DNC, it takes a bit, So we're into the better part of 8 months at this point, because we lost 2 months. Everything got straight. Couple months. We didn't get pregnant for 2 or 3 months. So we went to a fertility clinic here in town.
Okay.
And we did our first IUI.
Okay.
And again, being around, we found out she wasn't pregnant. We were at the farm for a weekend when I was there.
Yeah.
So we're still trying the whole time. Kelly's still tracking. I was your story. I was just right there with you. The peaks and troughs of emotions throughout this process. I mean, as cliche as it is, you can't explain it. Like if somebody has not been through this, they have no idea the emotional roller coaster.
And the IU, so we did IUI as well, right?
Yeah.
Let's define it, because there might be some people listening that have no idea what IUI is and how that's different from IVF. So who wants to take the floor on?
It's intrauterine inception, I think is what it stands
Insemination.
for. Insemination. Yes.
Yeah.
What great movie. Not that great for fertility, right?
The guy shows
some bad 80s movies in a bathroom.
It's horrible. Like when I turned those things on, I was like, my phone's better.
Yeah, it's so bad. It's so bad.
I was always curious about those rooms. I was like,
I mean, it's like, wait a minute, this one's in black and white. Are you kidding? Like they did this back then, you know?
And then some have like categories. You're like, oh, international.
Yeah,
international.
Yeah, it's a real treat.
Do you have a time limit?
No.
Wow.
Yeah. So is the school of thought to be like, okay, I'm gonna take my time and be cool, or you just want to get out of there? I mean,
dude, I try
a whole bunch of stuff going on.
You try to literally close your eyes as much as possible, just quiet everything and just get the job done.
Yep.
And then you get to luckily walk back out in the waiting room like, hey, what's up, 30 people? You don't know what I just did.
Exactly. You have
and they're all there to do the same thing.
It's a little brown paper bag you put on the desk. You know, that's me. Put the sticker on.
Wow.
You walk out, there's grandmas and moms in there, with their daughter having their first baby. Like, what's he doing? Don't worry about it, grandma.
Exactly.
So is it immediate? Like, so you deliver your sample and then Kelly's like waiting somewhere for it?
No, it's 24 hours, right?
It's so
they have to wash it.
Yeah, they wash it.
Yeah.
So it can be same day, but sometimes it's like the next day.
I think ours were all the same day.
I think we did the same day too.
I think.
Yeah. So they wash and then they do the procedure that afternoon or whatever it is.
So you like leave, have lunch, come back? Or like how does that work? Okay.
Leave, come. I mean, it's.
Do you get to be with your wife when she's then getting
we took
inseminated?
pictures. Yeah, we took pictures.
Oh,
we did selfies every time because I want to show Grayson. I don't know if this is what happened, but this may be how you.
Yeah. Okay.
But here's another introspective. So we had sex the day before and the day before that.
Okay.
And she was ovulating. The timing was perfect. And the physician said, you probably did this naturally, but we're going to go ahead and do it. So I've held on to that because of my ego.
There you go.
You know what I mean? He said, we did this naturally. He didn't do this.
That makes perfect sense. So you had 3 days of like, let's call it deposits.
Right.
Yes.
And one of those, you got pregnant with Grayson.
So she teases me. She goes, oh, no, doctor did it. I'm like, no, I did it.
With bad movies and all.
No. Well, naturally. Because like going back, my ego says we did it naturally. We didn't need his help. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But she likes to bust my you-know-what on that. So
I bet you did, though, because you had already been pregnant naturally, too. So
tell her that next time you talk to her, please.
I will.
Thank you,
I will. Yes.
Thank you,
but I do like that hearing about Kelly and how much of a planner she is. And anyone who's listening, why not double dip, right? Like, hey, do everything, right? Still keep having sex because it's connecting you with your partner and there's still a chance you're going to conceive naturally. But hey, if this other thing is an opportunity, like, why not? So, and Chris, you said you guys did IUI also, but that was unsuccessful.
Yeah, it didn't work. So, but
was this before the uterine surgery?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was before the surgery.
Before we went to the second doctor.
So your first one was unsuccessful, the IUI?
Yes.
Yeah, so was ours.
And I think we were going to do a second one, but we decided not to.
Okay.
Just because the whole, I was like, I don't get it. Like, it doesn't seem like.
You didn't like going in the room, just be honest. I mean,
I did think it was really cool how all you have to do in a public bathroom is put a recliner in there and it just fancies it up into a lounge.
All of a sudden,
really, this is. Yeah,
it's like a hospital bathroom.
Yeah,
it really
is.
It's a hospital
and they just put a lock on the door.
You
With
just
a recliner
blew my mind right now because I didn't envision a bathroom at all.
No, it's
like,
the little tile floors and everything, like a hospital
oh my
bathroom.
God, I'm envisioning like carpet and wallpaper,
like red
like
velvet
a bedroom.
curtains.
Employees must wash hands and a Dyson Airblade. I mean,
I'm so thankful.
In the paper towel holder.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm glad that my experience was very similar to other people's. Yeah, so it didn't work for us, and it was interesting too because it was more of we've been, I don't want to say let down because that's probably overstepping a little bit. I've personally, and I know that Jess, who sounds like Kelly's spirit animal or vice versa, just based on the way you describe her, you sound like you're describing my wife.
They need to be friends.
Yeah,
all
yeah.
all three of your wives need
Very
to meet and be
similar.
friends.
So we were let down by the medical community in certain regards as to how people approach this. So it's like a phone call, like, hey, you're not pregnant after you do an IUI look, right? Like, I understand they probably do this 100 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jess told me also, I think she got a bill, right? A final bill.
Yeah, we got a bill
for the birth of the baby that wasn't happening after a miscarriage or something.
We went, this happened twice at the first doctor we're at. I'm proud. Our memories are different sometimes. I should probably correct me after she listens to this, but after we had the first loss confirmed, as we're checking, when I walked in, they said, hey, Dad. Well, we were pretty sure we already lost the baby. And on the way out, they're like, so you'll be back in 8 weeks for your next. And we're like, you just told us that we lost our baby. And we were scheduling a DNC, and they wanted to schedule our next ultrasound. And then, they called for a follow-up ultrasound. And I think that happened 2 or 3 times.
Ugh, this just makes me want to.
Right,
so if there's anybody, God, willing, that's works in a doctor's office and an OBGYN office, is like listen, figure out a way for your electronic medical records to catch up to the front desk quickly.
And our experience at the second facility, the second clinic that we went to was a 180, completely different experience, right? So, and I think technology is a piece of that, but I also think we're habitual, right? Human beings. So I think if you do the same thing, you can lose kind of context into how you should perform what you do as your job. But I'm, like I said, I'm an older guy, but it's always do the best, no matter what it is, right? If you're going to flip hamburgers, be the best at it.
Yeah. It hurts my feelings really quick when you say you're older and we're like the same age.
I'm older than these two guys. That's what I meant to say.
I'm like, let's just clarify.
Yeah.
Like, you might be older.
I'm older than my
I'm
wife.
super young.
You are.
I'm like, right? I'm super young.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm super. I'm mature as like a 19-year-old. Right? So but so that
19. That's well done.
Right?
Good for you, bud.
I'll be a man here soon. I'm looking forward to that. But it's disappointing sometimes because you go through our experience with the DNC it's a traumatic thing, but then it's a common thing, right? And it can be like, it's our way as a biological entity to, when something isn't right, that's what the body does, right? And I think that's by design, and it doesn't diminish the pain or the emotional,
you mean miscarriage.
Yeah,
that's
that type of loss, right?
Yeah.
Because it is, it's a physiological response to something being wrong,
right? No, 100%.
Either DNA, something not right there, or and that gives a little bit of comfort. Comfort's probably not the right word. It gave me a little bit of okay, that makes sense. I'm extremely logical.
It applies ration and logic.
Right, absolutely. So I can hold on to that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's okay. That, I get that. But I think that the female experience is a totally different thing. That I tried my best to be able to empathize and be there and say I know you're hurting and I know what it's like, but I would never let myself utter those words to Jessica. I could never say I know what it's like, because I don't have no. She was emotionally attached to these beings.
Right.
A lot of moms will tell you, including myself, I felt like a mom, I felt conception
from the
absolutely. I was like Jess, that I woke up and was looked at my husband and was I'm pregnant, and he was you're crazy, but I felt like a mom in that moment. Now we're going to take a short break to just share a few things with you. Thanks for listening to the Birth Story podcast. I am so excited to announce the launch of my book, Birth Story, a 42-week guide for your pregnancy, a collection of these birth stories, a ton of doula advice, and journaling prompts. You can order a copy today at birthstory.com. It also will mean the world to me if you'll spread the word about this podcast. So on Stitcher or on iTunes, just leave a review. Thanks. When did you feel like a dad? I'm curious. We have 3 of you guys sitting at the table. 2 of you have experienced loss. Yep. And then Cass, you had a successful first time viable pregnancy. But I was curious, like, for each of you to answer this question, like, at what moment in the pregnancy or the birth did you actually feel like a father?
Sure, I'll step up. But I think for me personally, the whole fatherhood feeling did not kick in until Kennedy was actually born. Until I actually saw Kennedy and was holding Kennedy, that's when it actually clicked in. I think the entire 8.5 months, 9 months leading up to Kennedy's birth, it was more about just being there for my wife and being a husband before a dad and trying to be the best husband that I could during that time. Obviously, huge sympathy to you guys and going through what you went through and not having experienced that. But yeah, I just thought that my goal and my job was to be a husband and be the best husband that I could be. The fatherhood definitely didn't kick in until I saw Kennedy being born. And then in that moment, I'll say I felt the sense of fatherhood. And then when you leave, 2 to 3 days later and you put them in your car and you're like, you're just going to let me leave with this child and just walk out the door, and that's the end of it. Like, okay, just high five me and we're out of here and send me a bill later. Like,
that's exactly how it is.
Exactly. It's exactly how it is. And you're just walking away with this car seat and this child and your wife's in a wheelchair and you're like, okay, let's be both now. Let's be both the husband and the father. And then, I think even in the infant age, I will say the connection you're trying to make with a child that is, by all intents and purposes, not even really seeing you, if you will, is almost tough, because then you start to feel like, am I supposed to feel like I'm not connected, or am I connected, or is this how everyone feels? But again, it's one of those things as a guy, you don't talk about it. Like, it'll just work out the way it needs to work out. But here in the last, and Kennedy's 3 months old, but here in the last probably 2 weeks, the word father and dad means so much more than it did 3 months ago. Because she's starting to become aware. She's starting to see me, I feel like. She's starting to smile. The interaction's becoming. And that in and of itself, for me, is starting to define fatherhood for sure. And that's been my journey. So, I know everyone's a little bit different. But I will say in the beginning, like with the infancy and being a few days old and a few weeks old, it's like, right now I'm just taking care of you, and I don't even really get to feed you, to be honest. I just wake up at 2 a.m. and hand you to my wife, and then she feeds you, and then I send you back to bed. Like, that's my job, and an occasional burp every now and then. It's so you're trying to figure out what does that look like, but man, the amount of time is just exponential when they're infants. The leaps and bounds, and for me personally, the leaps and bounds from feeling like a husband to a father have been just significant. I'd say like in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Did y'all read books?
Oh my God. Yeah. So I could compare notes to someone.
Yeah, you did?
Yeah.
So I didn't until we got in a big not knockdown. Like, we got in a big fight about, she's like, read some box. And I'm like, what? And I was like, okay, I ordered 2 books on Amazon.
Listen to your doula's podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was 200 pages in each book of them saying, basically, don't be an ass. Do the laundry, do the dishes.
Right, step up.
Yeah, and I said, honey, like, I'm not reading any more books. I do all this stuff. Like,
right.
This is just basically saying, pitch in. Don't be an ass about it. So I was just curious what y'all's take on that was.
Yeah, I read a couple. I've read the chapters of the birthing store or birthing method or whatever. I can't remember. But I read one that was on baby brain development. Like,
that's cool.
Wow,
that one was I'm still reading it. It's awesome.
Like
That's
heavy neuro.
extensive.
Yeah, it's all backed in science. So I think he's a neurologist.
Yes, I'm sure.
So it's all like study based, but it's
Mhm.
like it's fast. It's mind blowing stuff.
That's phenomenal.
So Justin, just like Kelly is kind of like, planners, like Jess is really like data oriented. Like, I learned more from her than I think she learned from me.
Oh, really?
And that she would send me articles and I'm like, yep, never read that one before. I mean, I don't even know where she found some of this stuff. I mean, so educated. I can imagine she was like, you have to have all of these things read by tomorrow morning.
I can show you my phone now because I get those articles on a daily basis, right? And some of it's great, which is so.
Where do y'all live?
We live in Country Club Heights. Yeah.
Well, we live in Villa Heights.
Okay, yeah, so we're right down the street.
All right, we're just gonna have to figure. We're put them together. I'm just curious.
So I
about this.
had books provided to me.
Okay, fair.
Wow.
Prior, and then I had a buddy. So my best friend, we're the same age. Younger wives, weren't sure if we'd ever be dads. he had his son a week before mine.
Oh, cool.
So
That's
we
awesome.
both told each other on New Year's Day. He called me. I was like, "You won't believe this. We have news." And I'm like, "Don't even tell me." So he sent me a
No
book.
way.
He sent me The Expectant Father, I think, which is
That's what
Just
I read. That's
I mean,
what
I
read.
haven't read it because I'm not a dad,
Right.
but
Yeah,
It's both.
It's
Yeah.
yellow, right?
Yeah.
That's
good.
one of the ones I read.
Which
Yep.
it's got some.
do you
good
recommend
data.
it?
I wouldn't recommend reading it. From
I don't.
cover to back.
Okay.
I think there's some good stuff in there, but I think if you're a capable husband and man, and then there's good stuff in there, but there's probably some other resources that might be more beneficial.
Yeah, I can see how it would be kind of like degrading if you're, to have a book that's just like telling you how to be a good person if you already are a good person and a good
A
husband.
lot of it's common sense type stuff,
Yeah,
right?
it's 100%. I mean, it's. I'm trying to say this tactfully. There's a lot of guys out there that should read the book. I mean, let's just be let's be 100%. Let's be 100% honest about it. But if you have, again, I'm trying to be. If you have half a brain and you love your wife and you want to take care of things, I think it's a waste of time because that's basically what it tells you. For
I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying is during those 9 months with Christine, I was focused on being a husband.
Yeah.
And I think it comes with the territory of what being a husband looks like around the house.
Right.
And not to diminish that, but so he has a second book that's like the first year father.
Okay.
And that's awesome.
Okay.
Okay.
I
Well,
like that's
that
my
one-
like guy. I have that, and I have another one that's written like a car manual. It's called like the baby manual with diagrams and literally written like the manual for my car. Awesome.
I could.
So if something's
I could
happening, I'm
swing
like
that
looking
first
and be
year
like,
one.
okay, this is normal. Like the grunting is normal.
That should be an
that's
app.
cool, right?
I'm like, that should be like an app.
Um,
All right. Well, this brings me to see, I'm kind of biased on this because 100%, I mean, maybe like give or take a few, but like 100% of the dads that I work with as a doula are kind of in your same camp, right? Like they're really supportive of their wives to the point that they pay out of pocket a lot of money for a doula, right? So I feel like these kind of things go hand in hand, right? Like, so I'm not really dealing as a doula, I'm not dealing with dads that are just like clueless and treat their wives terrible and are unprepared. Like,
But that correlates.
yeah,
That correlates. Like a couple's not going to hire a doula that's not going to take care of the house and the
right,
that
all the
correlates.
things. Yeah.
Right.
So I want to know, like, what was your doula journey? Like, had you ever heard the word doula before? Did you know how much a doula costs? Like, how? Like, I mean, you're not going to offend me at all. So I want to know, like, how did you get me as your doula? Like, how did that come about?
Let me pop this open.
Okay, that's a beer.
Yeah.
And I should let all the listeners know, not only is everyone drinking beer, we are eating the Inducer Pizza. So it's kind of like a famous pizza from
It is
Hawthorne.
delicious.
And it's known to send so many women into labor that I just had to I had to try it. So, and maybe we'll see if any of you guys, did anybody, like on this little beer break, did anyone have the Inducer's wife had the Inducer Pizza?
We did.
Okay, Cass, you guys did. Did it send you into labor?
Within 2 weeks, I think we ended up.
Okay, well, that would be
within
a
2 weeks.
negative. Should have tried it again. So, and you guys didn't
I think
either?
we either talked about it so much that I think we did, but then I don't think we did.
Oh, okay.
But well, I mean, we tried.
But Jess had gestational
That's why we didn't do it. So
Yeah.
we planned on it.
There you
and then
go.
she was like, right.
Ding, ding,
borderline,
ding.
so we did not.
Gestational
Yes.
diabetes would put you out of
Yeah.
this. Okay, sorry.
No
All right, back to the doula stuff.
Yeah.
How did you find me? How did you get convinced, I guess?
I think our story is interesting too. So when we got to the point, so I don't know if it was like 12 weeks or what it was, that was like, so we need to be positive and think that this is going to happen. So we want to be ready, like as ready as we can be. And Jess mentioned to me, she's like, hey, I'm going to start looking at, she'd done all this research and she's going to start doing a doula. And I thought it was like an exercise class. I had absolutely no idea.
I thought it was yoga.
You're right. Like,
It was yoga.
Was that hot yoga? Like, what are we, goat yoga?
Like yoga coach.
What is? I swear.
Doula, is that the
If you
one with
send
the
me a
goats?
picture on a
Yeah, I
yoga
don't-
mat with a goat on your
Yeah,
back, I'm going to be furious.
What is that like? So she explained it to me, and I was like, so it's like because I was born by a midwife, right, in Texas back in the 70s. And I was like, so is it a midwife? And she's like, no, it's different. There's like and I was not, we communicate very differently, like extremely differently. So I'll ask her a question. You know, would you like, I'm getting up. Would you like me to get anything? And she'd be like, oh, milk would be delicious. I'd be like, okay, I'm getting up. Would you like me to get you anything? Like, I mean, just say yes. I want a drink. Or so, and that I have to work on that, right? Because I'm very literal. Like
I heard.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I
I
heard.
Get a glass of
I
milk.
heard get a glass of milk.
Yeah, right.
This is
Not me.
deja vu.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Not me at all. So,
Milk is delicious.
as she's like explaining to me what this,
I speak Jessica.
right? What this, which is good, helped us out a lot. What this is, I'm still struggling. Like I'm not grasping the need or what it is. And then she said the word advocate. She's like, it's an advocate for us. It's an advocate for what we want to happen. And it's a support mechanism type thing. And she knows me well enough to use those type of words. That makes sense to me. And I was like, absolutely. I don't care what it costs. If it's going to make you feel more comfortable and put us in a better place, do what you have to do. And then she went through an interview process, and we have a mutual friend because we used to go to the church that you go to. So, and Emily was part of our wedding, and her husband baptized me and married us.
Oh, cool. I
Yeah.
didn't even
So,
know that.
yeah,
Okay.
Austin's one of my best friends, as is
Awesome.
Emily. So she was like, yeah, Emily, set me up introduced me to Heidi, and she's awesome. And I don't want to, she might not have actually interviewed anyone else. I think she had some scheduled, and she met with you. And so it was a done deal.
Okay.
So it was a very easy decision for me personally to say, do whatever you have to do.
So advocate and support.
Yep.
All right.
And
Those are your big.
yeah, being an advocate, I think, is a huge thing, right? I mean,
Okay.
especially with the way the insurance companies are and with how, litigation and lawyers being involved in everything nowadays. I think anytime you can have someone else willing to be on your team, it's crazy. Not to
I know. And we're going to get to your birth stories in a minute. So I think we'll do that next, maybe.
Yeah.
But I felt like there was a lot of advocacy that was ultimately there was a lot of those two words kind of came to life in you and Jessica's birth,
100%.
with Ethan. So I'm going to go back to both you guys. So had you heard of a doula?
I personally had never heard of a doula until Christina mentioned it to me,
Okay.
in which case I did some Googling and some homework and some research. Christina's also one of those people, like your wives. I haven't got to share too much about Christina, but she is very set out, planned. This is how it's going to be. And in a lot of ways, I go back
And
to
stubborn.
oh, my God. Unbelievable.
I knew right away.
In a fantastic way, but yeah.
I'm not
it's,
going to give away too much, but I knew right away she was going to have a natural childbirth because I was like, she's never going to, I couldn't imagine a world where she was going to actually not.
Well, the time that I knew it was definite is she's sitting there bouncing on a medicine ball in our living room, and you're like, Christina, do you want to have a natural birth? And she's like, and you're like, if you say, you're not going to make it. And she's like, then I want to have a natural birth. And that was, that exactly. And so from that point forward, that was kind of, Christina approached me about it when we first got pregnant, that she wanted to have a doula. Again, didn't know anything about it, did a little bit of homework, talked to her a little bit about it, and then just kind of backburnered it. It was like, well, we'll see what happens. But Christina's one of those people that puts her mind to something and it's done. So within, I am a very faith-based person. Within 3 weeks of her saying that, we're at church, at Watershed at church, and sorry.
That's fine.
Okay.
You can say where we go to church.
Cool. I didn't know where names
Praise
and
Jesus.
all that.
I'm
Yeah,
just kidding.
absolutely. No, Watershed's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. If you're looking for somewhere, that's the spot. Yeah, exactly. But no, so Christina's about to do a little thing on stage at Watershed, and she's sitting there, and it literally just so happened she's sitting beside you that day.
I know. That was weird, right?
And somehow she mentioned
I didn't
the
know
word
she was
doula.
pregnant.
Exactly. Right. This was very early on.
Yeah, she didn't look
very
pregnant
early
or
on.
anything.
And she mentions the word doula, and you're sitting right there, and she comes off the stage, comes sits with me, and she's like, I found our doula. And I'm like, where?
Is that yoga? That's yoga we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Like, what just happened? What just transpired in the last 30 minutes that I'm clueless about because I saw you on stage?
God spoke to her.
Absolutely, yeah. Whispered right in her ear from the second row. So from that point, we set up a coffee date with Heidi. We sat down and talked. Obviously, we don't have a massive money tree in the backyard, so the finances were definitely a piece of the puzzle for us.
If you multiply what you paid me by 2 times per month for a whole year, I also don't have a big money tree.
So fact. But every dime counts, I should say, and especially when you're talking about bringing a child into the world. And I think the average report says it costs this much money to have a child until they're 18. So everything scares you from a financial standpoint. So adding an extra bill that we did not see coming into play was definitely a concern for sure for me. But in and of itself, I had told Christina, if this is what you want, then this is what we'll do. I just want to feel comfortable in knowing what my role will be, what Heidi's role will be, and what this will look like. And at the coffee sit down that we had, it was laid out perfectly. Everything was explained well, and it really came to light that having a natural birth was something that Christina wanted and was something that she, I'll say, needed you to accomplish. And at the end of the day, she was able to accomplish that due to you being in that room, because it's not an easy process. And I think you tell everyone that up front. This is not going to be fun. This is not going to be something that you're going to love. It's not, something you enjoy. It's going to be a very hard and difficult process, and potentially the most difficult thing you'll ever do in your life.
Or we're going to get to your birth stories, but as a husband, it's also very difficult to see.
Absolutely. And I don't think that resonates until you actually see it. It's one of those things where in the moment, being told it's going to be difficult to watch versus watching it, two completely different things. And being a husband and being a man and wanting to protect your wife and seeing her helpless and knowing you can do nothing.
The worst feeling in the world. And
you touch her wrong and that's the wrong spot. It's just it's quite a difficult process. But yeah, and just to get back to what we're talking about, having you was what made Christina achieve what she wanted to achieve out of the birth, and brought Kennedy into the world, and I wouldn't trade it for a minute, because it's what Christina wanted, and I'll support that.
Yeah, and I can't wait for us to share our stories in a minute.
Yeah, I didn't want to highlight on that too much.
It was so beautiful. All right, and then Justin, we can laugh now because I don't want to skip too far ahead, but
I'm going to be honest.
But there was no doula at your birth. But tell me when Kelly, approached you and said, hey, and she was planning to have a natural childbirth. She's a marathon runner. And this was something she was pretty interested in. So tell me what your first reaction was.
So advocate would not be the correct word for me. I was 100% against it from the start. Like I said, we're both very independent people. And I felt like somebody was being hired to take my place. And I was not having it.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I wanted to be there for her. I wanted to be the rock. I wanted to be, to help through the problems, talk things through. And I wouldn't have. I told you that on the couch when we first met. Yeah. I was like, I really.
And now I feel like you had this intuitive, there was something there, right? There's this intuitive sixth sense almost that kind of knew all along. I think that you knew all along it was going to be you. And you wanted it to be you.
So when I met you, I told you, you remind me so much of my mother. It's scary. She looks.
Your very young mother.
Yes. They look like identical twins.
I love it.
Like the hair, the dark eyes, the skin, the laugh, the smile. They look identical. Wow. That being said, I still didn't want her.
Fair enough.
When I met with Justin and Kelly too for the first time, every couple is so different in what their needs are. And I remember telling you, okay, I'm a coach. And I knew that Justin, I was getting that feeling he just wanted to do all of it. And I was thinking in the birth plan, Heidi, your role is to just show Justin how to be a hero. That's what I was thinking my role is if Justin gets stuck, if he gets stuck anywhere, it's just going to be show him what to do,
And that's fair. And anybody that is considering a doula, I would really take what I'm about to say to heart, because somebody gave me some phenomenal advice. So I was doing research and I was checking into things, and I started reading about how the American family is no more. Divorces. Her mom lives in Pittsburgh. Dad lives in Florida. My father's passed away. My mom's at the beach. That the American family is kind of broken down in a traditional sense, where grandparents, the generations are not together anymore. One's in Colorado, Washington, D.C., whatever. So it's not there. So if you think about a doula taking the place of the women in the traditional family in that way. So, in traditional childbirth for the last century or so, aunts, grandparents, mothers, older sisters, people that had childbirthing experience are always around to kind of carry the woman through childbirth. And I got that advice, and it clicked for me immediately. And I was against, me and Kelly got in a big fight about it. I was completely against it. We're not paying this money, not taking my job. No, it's not happening. Mm-hmm. And I got that advice, and I would really invite anybody to sit down and really think about that if they're against the doula process. because the level of support, like Kelly always asks me my opinion, always. 9 times out of 10, she goes and gets a second opinion too to just make sure mine's right.
Yeah.
That's who Kelly is. And her having Heidi to text, to call, to go through, like you could see it. It was just a lift off of her, and then it got like the more we went down, I got, what are you asking me? Text Heidi for? You're going to text her anyway. Text Heidi.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I want you to fold right into your birth story.
Okay.
Though, because I just feel like we can't jump around from this.
Yeah.
Because, so you hire me. I'm texting. We're doing some prenatals. Like we're
Orlando?
Yeah. And about 5, when was your due date? Guess date.
So
Let's start with that.
it was June 17th. Yeah. And then May 27th. So were you in Orlando?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm like, hey, Kelly.
Yeah. So she comes over and says, hey, by the way, I'm going to be on vacation for a couple weeks. It's no big deal. Y'all aren't due. Yeah, cool, whatever.
I was like, I've got a backup doula. You don't have any signs and symptoms. I was like, I feel pretty comfortable taking my kids to Disney World for a couple of days.
This is going to be great.
And literally, the second I drive away, I don't know if you know this part of the story, I called Kelly.
Yeah.
And I said, Kelly, I'm just getting like a weird feeling.
She told me, yeah.
I said, I'm getting a weird feeling, but I really, you need to, this is Sarah's number, the backup doula. Yep. I'm like, just in case, and
So I think I can't believe
biggest regret ever. Not really.
I can't believe I'm blanking on this. I think it was June 17th was our original date. Does that sound right?
Well, I have it in my phone.
June 15th or June 17th. Anyway.
Yeah, I think it was June 17th.
I think it was June 17th. But my mom lives at the beach, Curry Beach. So every Memorial Day, we go on the beach and hang out with my brother and his girlfriend and basically party all weekend. So obviously we're not doing that. She's a month out, 3.5 weeks, 3 weeks out. So we didn't go down. I think I played golf Saturday. Got up and played golf Monday with one of my best friends. And it was an 8 a.m. tee time. Thank God. Wasn't a 3 p.m. tee time. I'll never forget it. We're on hole 13. And I look at my phone, and I never check my phone usually when I'm playing. Mm-hmm. And I had 5 text messages from Kelly. And dude, something told me. I knew it. I was like,
I had to look at the phone.
It's like something told me, dude, look at your phone. And thank God I'd only missed a text by 2 minutes. At 10:42, she texted me a picture of her water broken in the bathroom.
Whoa.
So me and my best friend were playing with these 2 random guys. They both have kids, and
hold on, I got a second photo. What happened right before the water break? Did you get that? Okay.
I'm getting to that. So the picture of the water breaks, and then another photo comes in, and it's the mucus plug. And we're playing with 2 random guys. I think they both had 2 or 3 kids. And I'm like, we're not going to have the kid for 24 hours. Can I finish this golf round?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Brutal.
Do you want to know what I told Kelly? I'm talking to her and she's very calm. She's not really having contractions,
well, she didn't really tell us about her mom until kind of after the fact too, which is a whole nother thing.
But I was talking to her on the phone. I'm in Florida and she's like, Justin's golfing. And she's like, do I need to stop his golf round? And this is me. I said, no. I mean, I'm like, your water broke. Contractions will probably start in 6 to 8 hours. I'm like, you're probably having a baby today or tomorrow. But I said, let him finish his golf round.
Well, we thought it was going to be 24 hours,
know?
Like tomorrow morning.
A 52 on 13th hole.
Dude, that's not no lie.
From all these men talking.
You have to be shooting the best.
Come on, is there a better endorsement?
No lie, I am 2 over through 14. I'm playing a great.
Exactly.
I think I was 1 or 2 under through the 4 on the back.
Of course.
And I don't, going back to what we were talking earlier, things kind of happening. I don't know what it was. It's just something said, get your ass in the car. And I told Ben, I was like, get your ass in the golf cart, we're leaving. So here's an interesting thing. So hole 14, we're playing out at, am I allowed to say the golf course?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're playing out at Red Bridge, 35 minutes away from Charlotte. So it's a good little hike. And when me and Ben play, if Ben's driving, I always drive his car because he drives like a 95-year-old grandma.
Nice.
So he's not an aggressive driver.
And we'll be on the podcast next week.
Exactly.
Even though he has no kids.
He will tell us about you. I mean, he'll tell us about himself. So I get in the golf cart, and hole 14 is the furthest away from the clubhouse. So we just start tearing backwards through the golf course. And we hopped one tee box with people on it. People, like, you could see are furious.
Marshall come out and get you.
Man. So we hit the 15 tee box, and Ben, like, literally is hanging out over the cart going, his wife's water just broke. And there's like this anger and fury, and all these guys just go to like, oh, congratulations, man. Yeah.
Totally turns.
So this goes on for 3 or 4 holes until we finally get there. We get in the car, and we're I maybe 20 red lights I ran on the way home, maybe 25. I mean, we got home from Redbridge in about 15 minutes. I mean, we were rolling. So I get there. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, we still got a day to chill. Like, you want to go pack a bag? Like, what do you want to do, Cal? She goes, we should probably go to the hospital. I'm like, well, we've talked about this. We don't want to sit there for 20 hours. You know, let's go get something to eat. She goes, let's just go to the hospital and make sure everything's cool. I was all right. Yeah, no problem. So we get in the car, go to the hospital, check everything's straight. Like, yeah, you're at 1 centimeter. Like, cool. We're leaving. See you later. We went back home.
Yeah.
So we're hanging out.
What time was this?
So here's the thing. So 10:42 is when I got the text. Never forget it as long as I live. We got to the hospital at 1 because when I got home, we packed bags, took a shower. Like, we already had bags packed, but got a few other things together and just made sure we were ready.
And she was having some contractions.
Very, very, kind of small, okay?
Yeah.
Small contractions. So we got to the hospital. They checked everything. Kelly's straight, baby's straight, no big deal. We're like, we're leaving. Doc's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, yeah, we're leaving, dude. I'll sign a release, whatever you need. So we signed the release and we left. We got back to the house at 1:30. I swear, as soon as we walked through the door, the contractions hit like a hammer. Like, bam! I'm like, oh, man, what are we going to do?
I would just like to say they likely wouldn't have done that if you stayed at the hospital.
Probably.
All those fluorescent lights would have just like...
So my arms hurt for weeks. So we laid in our bed, and she just gripped my arms like this. And this went on for 3 hours. So about 4:30. Yeah, about 4:15, 4:30. I was like, give Heidi a call. Like, you know, Heidi, what, 20 seconds you heard her? Maybe 30?
Yeah. So usually I'll stay on the phone and just like listen to how someone you know, my experience is how you sound, right? Like when we get to Cass's story, we'll talk about the sounds and like when I know it's go. So I'm talking to Kelly on the phone for like 30 seconds and I am hearing her in transition.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, deeply in transition.
Oh, wow.
And this light bulb goes off as I'm talking to her. And she had mentioned to me while I was at your house that her mom had a very quick labor.
Quick and early.
And
her mom had
early.
both her and her sister 3 weeks early.
Oh, wow.
And
So-
she had Grayson 3 weeks early to the day.
So I'm talking to her. I can hear her in transition.
Yep.
I know her water's already broken. Once your water's broken, transition, baby that urge to push can come at any time, right? And this light bulb is going off like quick labor, early. And and I could hear it in her voice. And I'm like, Kelly, you're going to need to go to the hospital. I know I'm in Orlando, Florida. I mean, I'm going to call your backup doula like right now. But I'm like, but also Kelly's a marathon runner. And so her pain tolerance is very high. And she did not recognize transition as transition. She was just like toughing through it. Like, I think in denial, like there's no way I could be having a baby this quickly.
Well,
right?
Well, I kind of laughed too when you said Christina was stubborn. I kind of snickered. I'm like, well, she know Kelly, you know.
I think they're all going to be like besties. Yeah, I'm like, they're all going to be best friends.
Hyper independent, stubborn. Yeah, this is just Kelly. So Heidi says to her own speaker, I can tell by the sound of your voice, you need to get to the hospital right now. Yeah, because you helped her with in the room. And then I'll never forget it. We got to, you know, like the longer couch in our den, the one that I was sitting on when me and you first met. Yeah. She was like leaning over that on a second or even a third, I think. And you coached her through all of that. And then you were like, dude, go. Yeah. Like right now. Go. And so we got to the hospital at 4:50. I got her upstairs by 5 o'clock. And
I'm going to interject right now. I'm texting Justin. And the backup doula.
I forgot about that. That's right. Yeah.
The backup doula's on her way. And all of a sudden, Justin goes radio silent.
Nothing.
Here we go.
And I was like,
Baby time.
dang it.
That's it.
I forgot
So,
about that.
so I don't know what's going on. I'm so curious to hear now your side of the story, because on my side of the story, you're radio silent.
Yeah. Okay.
Communication has ended with Justin.
So let me back up. We're pulling out of the driveway, and this guy that lives across, nicest guy in the world. He's like, oh, he could see us coming out, and he could figure out he's got 3 kids. He could figure out what's going on, and he's like running, like trying to get the running window. I'm like, shut up. Get out of the way.
We gotta go.
Baby in the car now.
and his face is like, okay.
Scared him a little.
So we I parked the car right there. We put your blinkers on, you go up and everything. And I get upstairs at 5:00, and she could barely walk down the hallway. And the nurses, I don't think, really realized how far along we were and just how close we were. And
because you were just there.
Yeah. And then once they realized that this was go time, I mean, it was like a flurry of people. I don't even think all the people were in the room yet. So one of them tells me to get something in the bathroom, and I come out with a bucket and a pan. a
plunger and a toilet brush.
Literally.
Is this what you need?
This guy.
Like, just get so-and-so. And I'm like, all right. I went in the bathroom, grabbed out, and walked out. And she just shakes her head and takes one thing and
Leaves you just hands full. Yeah.
and everything.
Right.
Did you feel like, from your perspective, was Kelly like in lots of pain, or did you feel like she was controlled and did you understand kind of
Both.
how much pain she was in?
Both.
Yeah. Okay.
Both. I could, I've seen her run marathons. I could tell she was in a lot of pain,
Okay.
but I know how tough Kelly is too.
Yeah.
So
you knew she was okay.
yeah, I knew she was fine. I knew she was fine.
Was she throwing up?
No,
Okay.
no. So upstairs at 5:00, get in the room at 5:05, 5:10. She had 2 contractions in the bathroom. And like one of the nurses goes, you can't have the baby in the bathroom. It can't be born in the toilet. Get in here. she gets on the bed, and it was 4 big contractions and 4 big pushes. We didn't see any of the first. Second one, crown, rescinded. Third one, crown. Fourth one, he was born.
Wow.
Insane.
Like
That's unbelievable.
That's
a first.
It was literally like, and I caught it. Like me and the doctor, like,
That's crazy.
What?
so we weren't even in the hospital. Literally 45 minutes, and this kid was born.
I'm not sure.
Hold on. And then I think,
Yeah,
hold on.
wait.
No, but then I think the doula shows up, she shows up like right afterwards or something.
Yeah, of course.
misses the whole thing.
Just in time to see the first swaddle.
Right.
And I'm walking down the hall. I'm like, she's already had it. It's in there.
Like your services.
Yep.
Classic
services
coach
no
move.
longer needed, Oh my goodness.
But she was great though, because she helped Kelly a lot with talking about what to do next and what she's going to feel like and what's happening. So I think Kelly really appreciated her being there, because once again, it's her husband telling her it's okay instead of somebody else.
Yeah.
So it was to answer your earlier question too. The whole about like it dawned on me when it happened.
Yeah.
But that's who I am as a person. Like I don't get excited about things, really nervous about things until like it actually happens to me. So that was when it was.
You had that dad moment at birth.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really I'm a protective person. I was really protective. Kelly did all natural. They started to put the IV in, and I literally yelled at a nurse. I was like, "Don't you dare put anything," because she'd made it that far, and I was like, "I'll be damned if somebody's going to screw this up for her."
So she wanted natural as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
Good job advocating for her.
Yeah,
Go, Justin, go.
That was going to happen. She made that decision.
I think I owe you one. Buy one, get one free.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, for your audience, like what I said earlier, I would really invite people to think about it that way. I think Chris made a great point. Any extra support or effort, like you'd be crazy not to utilize, right?
Absolutely.
I really don't. When you put it in that way, and then you put it in the way that the generations aren't around to help out too, it just, I think we're a lot of being logic based. The logic is square on.
for sure.
Yeah. And I think afterwards too, like I'm not a postpartum doula, but I always tell everybody I'm a mom, so I try to talk to Kelly and like all of your wives as much as possible, like after the birth too, just to find out like, how's everything going? And do you need help? And, how's nursing and, all of that kind of thing. So, all right, both of your stories are so different. I don't even know where to start with between Chris and Cass. So who wants to go?
I mean,
Chris, go right ahead.
Totally opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's do the total opposite
so-
and then we'll do the in between. How about that? Okay.
Yeah, so Justin, and your story was our birth idea that we wrote down with Heidi, right? That's how we wanted stuff to go, and it didn't. I couldn't have gone more sideways. So yeah, my wife is just super, super headstrong.
Yeah.
She's stubborn. She's very stubborn. She's super researcher. She knew exactly what she wanted to do, and she throughout the whole pregnancy, right? Before we got pregnant, we eliminated chemicals from our home. We started kind of focusing on prayer maybe a little bit more than we had in the past. Essential oils, anything that she thought.
Oh, the essential oils.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. And I've become a fan, which might be the most disappointing or shameful thing of this whole story.
We've got 38 dispensers. What's a dispenser? No.
Diffusers.
Yeah. We have diffusers in every room.
It's unbelievable.
So fun. So she took every step, anything that, whether it was quackery or there was science behind it, didn't really matter. If it wasn't going to be detrimental to our lifestyle or our home or anything, she was going to try it. And I really respected that. She wanted to have a natural birth, and that was our plan, to do everything that we could do. And the background, I think I was knowing our journey, I didn't expect anything to go the way that we had planned or be easy, but I was hopeful that it would, and I was going to do whatever I could to support that. So
why did she want a natural birth?
Because there's a lot of science about how much better it is for the baby, right? So I think
my takeaway from listening to your wife too was that she had heard about how much the interventions could disrupt nursing.
Yes.
And
so
that was something that was really big for her.
Yeah, it was huge. And she's had surgeries. So she wanted to try to eliminate any type of stress on the baby and any of that potential for additional risk factors to come into play. And that also that went a little bit sideways kind of early on. So when she went for her whenever they do the gestation,
it was around 27 weeks. Yeah.
She had passed all of them, but the last one, and she missed it by 2 points. And so she kind of had it, but she never went on medication. She always kind of controlled it with her diet, and she didn't really have to alter her diet too much. So that was a good thing, but that was kind of the first, it wasn't a misstep, but it was the first thing that we didn't plan on happening. Yeah. Right. And just for everyone listening, it's the very first thing that you're ugh, they're going to push an early induction. Right. Or C-section or whatever. Yeah. And her, so not the physician that helped us kind of get to where we were, but her doctor at that point had even after that had thrown out scheduling a C-section. And she's the most anti, right? That wasn't part of what we wanted to do. And she was very firm. She has no problem being direct or being firm or speaking her mind, which I love about her, in addition to so many other things. But she was always, she built a really good relationship with her doctor because they would banter back and forth. And she's like, that's not part of our deal. So when Heidi came over and we wrote down what our birth story was, I remember it very vividly when you were tell me what you want your birth to be. Yeah. And she was like, I think, and I want to do this. And I had to stop her and be don't think, just let's what you
we had
do.
to redo it.
Yeah, because she already had a little bit of that doubt kind of creeping in. And I totally get she's way stronger than I could ever be. She's the fiercest lover, and she's just, and I mean a lover of people and lover. She's a beast, right? And I don't have that strength. So I wanted to give her that, just whatever let's make it happen, or let's just throw it out in the universe and see what happens. So we got that, and we knew what we wanted to do. We were going to go in, but we're not going to get induced, right? We're going to go into labor on our own.
And let me interject here too. When I was at your house too, one of the things, I don't know if this ever happened with Kelly, but one of the things that was happening with Jessica was that those previous losses were, all that grief came right back to the surface, because it's those are mini labors, right? Yeah.
So one thing we didn't say earlier that I think it's important for people to understand once you have a miscarriage, at least for us, or I'll just say me, I won't speak for Kelly. Even up till the baby is born, you always have that in the back of your mind. I mean, you're scared. Whatless until he or she is there and they're breathing and they're okay. Like that fear just will never ever leave you. And I, just for the listeners that have gone through it, that you're not alone in that. That's natural.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, Justin.
And I think it's so part of our story. It's important to know that the loss prior, right, our last one, my wife was at a cupcake making class with my mom, who had recently moved to Fort Mill from Florida. So my parents relocated up here to be closer to us.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool that they did that. And so they were having like a bonding day, right? And she's texting me and she's like, oh my God, I think I'm losing the child. And I'm like, well, like, what, how do I navigate that? What do we do? And when we went to the doctor the next day, they basically told her flat out, they were like, you were laboring for about 12 hours, right? To try to naturally have this happen. So she'd experienced that. And I think it was that night when we were talking where that was the first time it came into her head. She's like, oh my God, when I go into labor, am I going to think about that situation? Right. Which is smart. That's the intelligence side of her brain saying like, hey, be ready because this is coming, because it makes sense that could happen. But then there's the part that's like, God, why can't you just like keep that locked away somewhere so we can focus on other things? Right. But unfortunately, that's not the way things work. So we had our plan. And as we got, every time we went to an ultrasound, they were like, oh, he's 7 pounds or he's going to be 10 pounds for all this stuff. And it's funny how we can send a camera to Mars to take pictures, but we can't really tell how big a baby is in utero, right? Like there's a pound difference. I mean, the 10% variation, right?
I could not agree with that anymore.
Right. Like, so we're kind of going through that, and her physician is like, we're probably going to schedule a C-section, and we're really fighting against that. And then basically what happened is, I can't remember when it was close by, but she had low amniotic fluid. So it was below the 0.2 or whatever the threshold is.
Yeah, you have to have like, each pocket has to have at least 2 centimeters of fluid. Right. And she didn't have any pockets.
Right. So
they said.
Right.
It's so hard. Again, we don't know what we're looking at.
Because we can see it on there, right? We can tell there's not a lot, but it looked like, I'm not a doctor, obviously. It could have been a map of Asia. I wouldn't have known it was a baby.
But at that ultrasound, they couldn't find any pockets that had more than 2 centimeters of fluid. They were all very low.
So our due date was the 31st of August, and they had recommended, if we weren't in labor, to do an induction. I want to say on like the 23rd. Mm-hmm. And after that appointment, they moved that Friday appointment to Tuesday at 1 p.m., 1 or 2 p.m. And it was what I tried to like really.
So it ended up being 10 days prior,
right.
10 days, an induction 10 days early. And
I was trying to say like, hey, it's all for like, right. The goal is to have a healthy baby. So if this is what they're saying to do, let's go and we'll do everything. We literally for a week did everything possible. I mean, anything done on the internet or anywhere that you could read, we did to try to get her into labor.
Like eating the prunes, the whole 9 yards, all that stuff.
Yeah, I might have gotten some nettles off the internet. I don't even know what happened. A lot of stuff happened there. Raspberry to red raspberry leaf tea. There's a lot of stuff going on. So there was something that morning that really threw me off. Oh yeah, she's like, I just booked a last minute massage. I think you have just some lady's house in Elizabeth or something. I don't know what it was, but we went. She had a massage, and then we couldn't figure. Like I was starving.
Chiropractor.
That's what it was. It wasn't a massage. It was a chiropractor. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So she had an adjustment, and then I was like, "Well, I have to do this stuff for work. So can you come back?" And and we couldn't. And then we had to like eat. The whole thing was weird. So we figured that all out. We got the car packed up. She got her adjustment done, and then we went right to the hospital. So I did the same thing. I don't know if I was at Presbyterian, so we put a little spot, blinkers on, go upstairs, right? Meet the nurse. I go
8th floor.
Yep, 828. I should know this. I have it written down somewhere. So get Jess in the room. They're not super busy that night, but it was a full moon, so I figured we'd probably be in like a hallway, but we weren't, which was cool. And I run down to get the rest of the bags. And by the time I get up, the mood of all the nurses has already completely changed. Wow. And something has happened. There's no doubt something has happened.
Wow. No way.
Yeah.
Did your heart just drop?
Yeah, a little bit. I was like, because Jess she speaks her mind, right? She's a very she's forthright in her feelings and her opinions, and usually in a very like tactful way. You know, she's respectful. She's a sweet Southern girl. And she looked at me. She's like, "Oh, that nurse hates me. She's pissed." And I was like, "Okay, like what happened?" So the first thing they did is try to give her an IV. She said, "I'm going to delay the IV. Like there's no medical need for me to have the IV." And that set the nurse off, right out of literally within the first 5 minutes of being there. So I'm like, this is going to suck. Like, I don't want to, I want to just, can I go home and play Xbox or something? Is this how it's going to be? But the doctor came in and Jess was very articulate based on, I'm sure, in a good part to conversations with Heidi about, you know, it's not medically necessary. Let's delay it as long as we can. Because she wants to be on the birthing ball. She wants to be in the tub.
Right.
All these things. So doctor's like, cool. But if there's any signs of like us going to the next level.
Were you not there? Was this another one?
Oh, I get there.
Yeah.
Okay.
She,
So
I'm
sorry,
there.
I was waiting.
She gets there. And
Okay,
she
okay.
gets
I was there.
it, and then she gets back.
Okay, I was trying to
ready
figure
to
out.
ask, did you miss another one?
Yeah, I was like,
No,
wait a
not
minute,
at all.
hold on.
No.
So
I
one for three kind of
Put
thing?
it this way. I made up for Justin and Kelly's birth
Oh, yeah.
with Chris and Jessica's.
Awesome, yeah.
And about
She actually could have gone to Orlando and then came back. Still. Yeah.
Yeah.
three
Oh,
times
Yeah,
over.
probably, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
No.
No.
So she was a big part of it. So
No, but one of the things that we should tell listeners is that one of the things I had coached Jessica and Chris on is that inductions can take up to 5 days.
Right.
And Jessica had a conversation with her provider and he said, that's not going to happen to you. That'll never happen, you know? And I just said, okay, well, I'm just letting everybody know that I'm going to come, like my role is still to be with you in active labor, but I still am going to come often, you know, and just check in, check out, make sure the room and the environment are good. But I'm not going to sleep at the hospital for 5 days.
Right.
straight.
Okay, I see now. Okay.
Now, stick with us for the very next episode on the Birth Story podcast of Daddy Boot Camp. These 3 dads are continuing their birth stories and discussing their transitions to fatherhood.
Thank you for listening to Birth Story. My goal is you will walk away from each episode with a clear picture of how labor and delivery might go, and that you will feel empowered by the end of your pregnancy to speak up, plan and prepare for the birth you want, no matter what that looks like.